Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today, as I promised yesterday, we will try to analyze the special military operation a little bit with different way. And I asked myself a few days ago that, and I found this, I'm not just asked myself, I found myself that when talking about the special military operation, most of the military experts and the soldiers on the ground, officers on the ground, most of the information we are able to receive from the open source says that the most important battle these days is the battle for Bakhmut. Yes, there was a few updates about Vuhledar, but we saw that the Russians were defeated during that operation, and now one more time, all media all over the world are completely focused on the battle for Bakhmut, and we try to measure the special militarization based on this battle. Furthermore, we not just try to measure, we try to determine and to project the future of the special military operation, also based on the results of Bakhmut battle. But this is not correct because, as you know, according to the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation, they split the entire front line from Kherson to Kupiansk into several parts. And the Russians are saying that according to their classification, there is a Kupiansk front line that starts somewhere at Dvorichna, and this front line ends in the area of Stelmakhovka. So this is the area that is the Kupiansk front line. The next front line starts at Stelmakhovka, and then it goes to the south to Seversky Donetsk River, and this is Liman front line. The next front line is Donetsk front line. This front line starts at Seversky Donetsk River and ends somewhere in Marinka. This is the largest front line. And this special military operation, if you ask me, I would split this front line to several parts. Let's say Seversk part, Bakhmut part, Toretsk, New York part, Avdiivka part. It's my opinion. The next front line is South Donetsk front line that starts at Marinka and ends at Velika Novoselovka, and the next one, Zaporizhzhia front line that starts at Velika Novoselovka and ends somewhere in Energodar, and the final front line is the Kherson front line from Kherson to Energodar. But I see, and I mentioned that most of the military experts trying to determine the entire special operation based on Bakhmut front line. Yes, Bakhmut battle is one of the most important. Of course, we can't say anything else. But this is a strategic battle, and we understand that the parties that are able to win this battle are going to receive strategical benefits. If the Russians are able to do this, they will be able to receive operational square, and they will be able to start the battle for Kramatorsk and Slaviansk. If the Ukrainians are able to do this, that means that they are able to reduce the one of the most experienced and powerful forces from the Russian side. I'm talking about Wagner's, and to save the bridgehead and to give no results for the Russians and just a lot of losses. But I tried to analyze the situation, and I found that the Bakhmut battle is not the only strategic battle. There are at least 3 strategic battles on the Ukrainian front lines, and the rest 2 battles is not less important than Bakhmut. Sometimes I think that they're even more important, but because of the fact that all media is completely focused on Bakhmut, we don't see the other battles. But they're also very important. Furthermore, I found at least 3 tactical battles on the territory, at least of front lines, maybe even more, but these battles are also very important, and if the party are able to win the tactical battle, that means that they are able to receive some kind of tactical benefits. And of course, there are a lot of operational battles, also very high intensivity, and if the party are able to win operational battle, then they are able to receive operational benefits or something like this. So, but how to understand where is the tactical battle, where is the Russians, let's say, yes, we are using some kind of deployment map to understand the deployment of Ukrainian forces. We are using the Institute of Study of War map to understand some kind of claims of both parties and which progress they had on this current situation. We have the Western sources map where we can draw some icons and clouds. We have the Russian sources map that provides information about from the Russian side. It is very important and very powerful tools, but all these tools, they are not giving us the main information. Where exactly is the main clashes? We can understand about this or that main clashes from the media, from Telegram channels, from YouTube channels, from the officers on the ground, but sometimes they are not providing the real and correct information. And to understand the real situation on the front line, we need to analyze a lot of data, not just for the previous 24 hours, not just for the previous day or week. We need to analyze the situation for months, at least for months, to understand where exactly was the most important clashes and so on, where exactly these days the Russians are trying to make strategic win or something like this. But so how to analyze such a big data? And for these purposes, we are going to use the Russian sources map, because they have such a tool to provide information about the months of clashes, and this helps me to understand where exactly the Russians are focused these days and what are they planning to achieve on this or that front line. So let's return back to the Russian sources map. As you can see, there are a lot of hundreds of icons on this map, and from this zoom it's very difficult to understand what's happening on the territory of Ukraine all over the front lines. So that's why we will zoom in and we will try to analyze each front line separately. There are icons for a month, so that means that the latest icon that are put on this map is dated on the 8th of February of 2023, and the last one is noontime of 8th of March of 2023. So first of all, let's start with the Kupiansk front line. So as you can see, as we discussed, the Kupiansk front line starts somewhere in Dvurechne, and this front line ends at Stelmakhovka. And Stelmakhovka is Novoselovka, and this is Stelmakhovka. So according to this map, according to this data, this is just a mathematic data, just the number of icons and the concentration of icons on this or that point of front line. So based on the previous months, we see that the Russians published a lot of updates, a lot of pieces of news from the area, from Dvurechne and Liman and Grigorievka, my bad. So, and this situation completely correlate with the updates that we received, that the Russians, as a result of their offensive operation, achieved some progress there. They established control over Dvurechne, over Grigorievka, and they're moving in the direction of Kupiansk. But if you take a look at Kupiansk, we see that during the previous months there were just a few updates. The Russians are saying that during the previous months, the Ukrainians, let's say, lost one helicopter, that there was a video confirmation of some tank convoys that were moving from Kupiansk in direction of Novoselovka, and another update that Ukrainians started forcing evacuation of civilians. But the most important is not the icons, the most important is the concentration on the number of icons. So the thing that you can see right now above the Grigorievka and Dvurechne is the tactical battle. Not even tactical, I believe. It's operational battle for Kupiansk bridgehead. So this is the first operational battle, and as a result of the previous month's clashes, the Russians won that operational battle. And as a result of that the Russians achieved operational benefits from this bridgehead. They secured the flank, and now they're able to start offensive operation in Kupiansk. The absence of icons above Kupiansk, as you can see, there are no artillery attacks, there are no shelling, there are no rocket attacks, says us that the Russians have some plans and they don't need destroyed Kupiansk. They need Kupiansk is not destroyed, and they want to, so they have plans. The situation that this town is not under fire for the last months, and we see that Ukrainians use this area for crossing the river Oskol and to sending reinforcements, tell us that the Russians have plans and they want to take this city not ruined. So this is the first operational battle, and we see that the Russians are pretty successful when talking about the results of that battle. But this is operational battle. Now the next concentration of icons we can see in the area of Novoselovska. And this is not something new for us. We know that there are very heavy clashes in Novoselovska, and we see that there are a lot of icons, there were a lot of pieces of news, a lot of updates that the Russians were attacking this area, and this is the second operational battle. But for now we see that nobody achieved success, and the Russians haven't established control over this town, the Ukrainians as well. But there is important update. The Russians tried to publish the photo and video confirmation icons from both sides, and from the Russians, from the Ukrainians. And as you can see, there are very heavy artillery attacks from the Russian side of the Ukrainian back, of the Ukrainian position in the back, that they're using for sending reserves in direction of Novosilovka. But when talking about the Russians, there are not much icons saying that the Russians are under very heavy attack from the Ukrainian side. And this is Telmakhovka, another operational battle. All these three battles, like Telmakhovka, Novosilovka, and let's say the north of Kupiansk, makes one battle for Kupiansk. It's the first strategic battle that the Russians have. And when talking, if we split, as I told you, this battle for three parts, like the North Kupiansk, Novosilovka, and Telmakhovka, the Russians have already won one battle operational, and they still need to win three other battles to win this strategic battle. But for now, the Russians have won just one, and we can say that because based on this logic, we can say that the Ukrainians have won two battles. The first one for Novosilovska, because this town remains under Ukrainian control, and Telmakhovka, this area still remains under Ukrainian control. So the north front line 2-1 in Ukrainian favor. Because the situation that the Russians are not able to push the Ukrainians back means that it's also a victory. It's defense operational defense battle, but it's operational battle. Now let's move to Liman front line, and there are a lot of interesting updates here as well. So as you can see, the entire Liman front line we can split into three battles, but Liman itself is a strategic battle. But Liman front line has a number of tactical battles, number of operational battles, and another sub-strategic battle. First of all, let's start from the north. There are some clashes on the north from Telmakhovka to Chervonopopovka, but it's just a regular artillery duels, and I can't tell you that this is something important. These battles, these clashes that started from Telmakhovka to, let's say, Chervonopopovka, this line, is not even operational battles. It's just, I don't know how to even call them, it's the lowest level of importance. The Russians are not trying to storm this river, and the Ukrainians also are not trying to push the Russians back. So there are some, so this front line is very stretched, and it has some value, but as we see, nobody are able to do anything, and there are just regular meetings on the front lines when both parties try to find out, to check the enemy's position. The first operational battle is in the forest that located on the west from Chervonopopovka. As you can see, there are a lot of icons, a lot of concentrations, and this is operational battle. The Russians try to push the Ukrainians back from this forest, but the Ukrainians are still there and are not planning to step back and give up. So, and we can say that this battle is in Ukrainian favor. So 1-0 in Ukrainian favor. The next battle is the battle for Yampolovka, as it's also operational battle, and as you can see, the Russians are pushing in this area, and during the previous months they managed to develop the bridgehead in this area to take control over the silence. So it's very difficult to determine what is the progress in the battle for Yampolovka. And but so I can't judge, I can't give you the real understanding whether the Russians won this battle or the Ukrainians. So I believe that it's some kind of withdrawing this year, because the Russians had progress, and from the other side they still haven't reached the outskirts of Yampolovka. So, but there are a lot of icons saying that this is also very important and operational battle. Furthermore, I believe that this is not even operational. This is a tactical battle on this front line. This is operational battle for the last on the for the forest that located on the west of Chervonopopovka, but the battle between the silent and the Yampolovka is the tactical battle. Now we are moving to the south to the strategic battle. Strategic battle is the area in the forest that located on the north from Serebrianka and the south of Kremenaya. The number of icons during the previous months tell us that this is the real strategic battle. And I believe that when we listen to the reports of Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation about the Liman front line, when they're saying that the losses of Ukrainians is on the very high level, and I always try to point your attention, this is exactly the numbers we received from the battle for Serebrianka forest. And as you can see, if we compare the number of icons, the number of updates that we received from this area, let's say with the Yampolovka Silent front line, or Chervonopopovka, or let's say even Novoselovka or Stelmakhovka, we see that the number is in many times the number of these updates is twice or three as as the areas we just discussed. So this is the strategic battle, and the Russians understand that this bridgehead is very important for the Russians. We also understand the value of this bridgehead because this is the part of the battle for encirclement of Seversk bridgehead, Seversk, and so on. And to tell the truth, soon we will move to Bakhmut area and to other strategic places, and you will see that the numbers of updates that we receive from this front line is almost at the same level as the battle for Bakhmut. So this area is has the same importance for the Russians as Bakhmut. But when talking about the media, nobody talks about this front line. Nobody talks about this front line. Nobody gives us nobody says that about forest in Serebrianka, that this is the one of the most important, that strategic area. Nobody, but this is the facts. You see that I'm trying to say that Bakhmut is not the focal point of this special operation. There are a lot of front lines, a lot of achievements, a lot of battles, and battle for Serebrianka forest is one of the most important and powerful battles these days. And for now, I can't tell exactly who's winning, but the thing is that the Russians are pushing here, and the thing is that Ukrainians have a lot of problems with supplying and supporting this area because they need to cross Seversky Donetsk River using the pontoon bridges. The Russians don't have such problems. They have supply from Kremenaya, from Rubizhnoye, and from, let's say, from the mainland. They can move the endless number of forces, ammo, armored vehicles. So I believe that when talking about this strategic battle, the Russians are winning. So this is important. And if the Russians are able to win the strategic battle on the in the Serebrianka forest, I believe that this will bring the entire victory over Liman front line. And there are very heavy clashes. Furthermore, the deployment map confirms that there are a lot of forces in this area. So let's go to the for now there are not much, but even about this map we see that there are a lot of Ukrainian forces. Some of the forces from this forest were deployed in direction of Yampolovka, but this is about the February. I'm not saying that this is the number of updates we received since the beginning of February. The next time I'll try to do this analysis every single week, trying to understand where during this or that week where was the most important clashes and where the the biggest numbers of updates we received. And every single month we will try to analyze where was the strategic battle. We will try to determine who won this or that strategic or tactical operational battle. There is a small tactical battle on the north of Donetsk front line, and I'm talking about Belogorovka. That's not even tactical fight, my bad. It's operational. According to the numbers of updates we received, we can make a conclusion that this is a small operational battle. And for now, nobody achieved any success in this area. The Ukrainian still controls, but during the previous months, we received at least a number of updates that were saying us that the Russians managed to develop. There is like movements, the progress, and so on. But for now, the town itself is under Ukrainian control. Now we are moving to Bakhmut, and first, before we move to the Bakhmut, just make a screenshot of this of Serebrianka forest, because this is the first strategic battle you saw in this analysis, and now we will try to compare with the numbers of icons we received from the Bakhmut strategic battle. And this is the Bakhmut strategic battle. Of course, the number of icons from this area for the last months is maybe 3 times more than in comparison with Serebrianka forest. So this is the battle for Bakhmut, and this is the battle for Serebrianka forest. Of course, the number of icons is less, maybe twice as less, but these 2 battles are also the strategic battles, and I believe that the number of icons in this area says not about the fact that this battle is more strategic than the battle for Serebrianka. We need to understand that there are a lot of press, soldiers on the grounds, and a lot of people who provides a lot of information. Every single movements are published, and people try to show as much as possible. So this is the reason of the differences. So if at some certain point of time people understood that the Serebrianka forest has maybe bigger importance, I try to point since the beginning of the special operation that the level of the losses in this area is almost the same as the level of losses in Bakhmut. So I pointed this. But we can wage this information on the number of people who are involved in this battle and who are able to publish information. And furthermore, it's also very difficult to analyze the battle for Bakhmut because the front line is not stable, and we understand that the Russians, at least some certain part of this battle, have already won, and there was a lot of icons that were showing about the progress. So it's, for now, we will not analyze the battle for Bakhmut. We will do this maybe just to see, just for picture and to understand the situation around Bakhmut. We know exactly the situation around Bakhmut. We know exactly that there are a lot of updates, a lot of the statistics and mathematics tell us that, and this information completely correlate with the reality, so that we have from media and so on. So we won't stop and we will move further. Very interesting updates are coming from this small area by the town by the name of Gorlovka. And this is very interesting mathematical and statistic data. As you can see, there are a lot of icons that the Russians are saying that this part of Gorlovka is under very heavy artillery fire. You know that we mentioned, from my side, I mentioned Gorlovka maybe 2 or 3 times since the beginning of special military operation. I told you that Gorlovka is a possible direction of Ukrainians attack in direction of Debaltseva. So like if they want to start greatest of Ukrainian offensive operation, so this is the best solution to do this. And the Ukrainians, I don't see any problems from the Russian side that the Russians can cause the Ukrainians from this area. But as you can see, the number of shelling of this area tell us that this is one of the most important part of the front lines for the Ukrainians. So they know something that we don't know. I can't even tell you what exactly is happening in Gorlovka, in this western part, because the trenches that were prepared by the Russians since the 2014s, and but as you can see, this area is under very heavy fire. I don't think that there are a lot of civilians in this part of Gorlovka. I believe that this territory mainly is under Russian soldiers' control, but you see the number of attack. And for now I can't tell exactly, but I see that there is a small operational artillery duel clashes in this area, and the Ukrainians want to achieve something, but we don't know for sure what exactly they're trying to achieve during the attack of the western part of Gorlovka. Now let's move to the south, and we are coming to Avdiivka. As you can see, Avdiivka is another strategic battle in Ukraine, not just Bakhmut, because there are a lot of icons, but if we compare these icons with Donetsk, there are almost the same number of icons. And first thing that I want to point to is the battle for Novobakhmutovka. Yes, we had a lot of very interesting updates, but we never analyzed these data together, combined. We didn't try to analyze what the Russians are planning to do. There was a piece of news about this area that the Russians had some progress. We discussed the operation in direction of Krasnogorovka, in direction of Bakhmutovka, Novobakhmutovka, but we haven't made a very deep analysis of this information. But as you can see, according to this map for the previous months, there was a very powerful tactical battle for Novobakhmutovka. And as you can see, the Russians during the previous months were trying to attack Novobakhmutovka. As you can see, not Novobakhmutovka. As we discussed, one of the most important area on this bridgehead is the forest. This one that located between, let's say, Novosilovka Drugaya and Novobakhmutovka. This is one of the most fortified Ukrainian positions. And as you can see, during the previous months, the Russians were trying to encircle this area from the south by attacking in direction of Krasnogorovka, by moving along this railroad, and the north one attacked to establish final control over Novobakhmutovka and to encircle this forest from the north. Do you remember that we were talking about this battle, that we paid so much attention? I don't remember. We just discussed a few updates about this battle, but nothing so important. And I don't remember any in the media and the YouTube channels as well who were talking about the battle for Novobakhmutovka. But these numbers and these icons, these statistics show us that we missed something. We missed a very important tactical battle on the north of Avdiivka. And as a result of that battle, today the Russians have gave us another piece of news that the Russians finally established control over Veselaya, the town that located on the west from Novoselovka-Drugaya and the east-south from Krasnogorovka, on the north from Avdiivka. So, as we can see, furthermore, don't forget about the number of days that we received during the previous months that the Russians established control over not just the part of this forest, Novoselovka, but they managed to develop their bridgehead in direction of the road, this one road. So, as a result, I see that the Russians had some progress. We missed that battle at all. We didn't discuss this battle, just paid small attention, but now, after 1 month after, we see that this tactical battle was at least in Russian favor. I'm not saying that Ukrainians were completely collapsed or defeated there, but the Russians had progress, and it's very important because we missed that battle, but that was a very important tactical battle in the north of Avdiivka. Now let's move to the south of Avdiivka, and you're gonna see that this is Avdiivka, and the most important data that we can receive from this picture is the stretching of Russian artillery attacks. Most of these icons on this part of the west, on the west part of Avdiivka, central west part of Avdiivka, is the artillery strikes. Furthermore, the Russians, this is the area where the Russians started using their own 1,005 kilos corrected bombs and 5 kilos bombs, and you see the area that the Russians are targeting. They're not attacking the north part, they're not attacking the chemical plant. There are not much attacks in this line between the front line, let's say, since the 2014s, there are a number of attacks. There are no attacks in this area. The Russians are focusing during the previous months just on this residential area. As I discussed, this is like a copy of small Vuhledar, but bigger than Vuhledar, twice or three as bigger as Vuhledar. There are lots of warehouses, and this is one of the most important fortifications of the Ukrainians in Avdiivka. And as you can see, the Russians started using air bombs, very powerful air bombs. During the previous months, they were doing just this. And when talking about the north, there are also a lot of icons, and the main thing that we see that the Russians are able to use broad frontline attack. You see that they're moving to Vadiane, they're moving a little bit to the west-south from Severna, they establish control over the hills. So they're trying to move using the broad frontline attack, but they're trying to hold their forces as far as possible from these fortifications. So they're trying to move a little bit to the west and trying to encircle the Ukrainians from the west. And when talking about Tonyenka and Severna, of course, we understand that this is the main focal point of battle for Avdiivka at this stage, that the Ukrainians don't have a lot of that the Russians are not paying much attention. There are just the Russians are saying that during the previous months they destroyed one Rapira anti-tank weapon, and one warehouse was destroyed. So I believe that the Russians, and of course they don't see any problems to take these two villages, and the only problem is this residential area from Avdiivka, and this is the battle, strategic battle for Avdiivka. And as you can see, this is a very ongoing process, and but it's very difficult to call this battle for Avdiivka strategic. I believe that it's a battle for Avdiivka, but for now it's just two battles. The battle for the south of Avdiivka, where there are tactical battle for the south, where the Russians are trying to attack Tonyenka, Severna, and to destroy, to reduce to ruins the residential area with the air bombs on the west central part, and the tactical battle in the north, so to try to encircle from both sides this area. Now let's analyze another data, is the situation how the Ukrainians attacked Donetsk with artillery. We talk a lot almost every single day where I'm saying that Donetsk is under very heavy fire, the Ukrainians attack this town, residential area. But if you take a look at this map, you're gonna see that there is a structure. It's not like just the Ukrainians attack there and then nobody know and understand where exactly the Ukrainians are planning to attack. The Ukrainians attacks the first tactical, let's say, reserves Russian, second one, the third one, and strategic area. So it's like layers, and something tells me that this is not just the area that Ukrainians took a decision to attack, and something tells me that they know for sure. You see, it's a structure. We don't see like a balagan like in let's say in Bakhmut when there is a lot of icons and you don't see the structure. There's just a lot of movements. There is like a real mass. Nobody understands where exactly is happening and what is happening. But when talking about Donetsk, there is a structure, and this structure tells a lot about the layers of Russian reserves, of their command centers, and what they're going to do. So based on that, we see that the Russians at least have two tactical levels. The first one in middle part, I believe that something tells me that this is not just the area where the Russians have just civilians. There are, I believe, a lot of maybe command center. Maybe this is the area where the Russians have some administration buildings and so on. And the first layer right in front of the front line, this is the reserves and commands of the tactical level. The first one is Avdiivka, the second one is Pesky and Первомайская, and the third one is Mariinka. And there are small layers on the between Gorlovka and Donetsk, and they are responsible, I believe, for Novobakhmutovka. So this one and these reserves works for Novobakhmutovka. So this is Mariinka tactical reserves, and this is tactical battle for Mariinka. Yes, we talk a lot, and we see that Ukrainians attacks heavily the Russians' reserves, Russian positions. From the other side, we see that the Russians are not so aggressive while attacking Mariinka. Is in comparison with, if we compare these two pictures, we see that Ukrainians are more aggressive on this by attacking the Russians than the Russians in comparison with the Ukrainians. And it's a small tactical battle. Furthermore, I see that intensivity of icons even says that it's very closer to operational battle even than tactical. So I see that the Russians maybe don't want to pay a lot of attention, or maybe they just can't do this. So, but for now, we see what we see. One more time, the battle for Donbass, Avdiivka is strategical. We haven't received a lot of updates from the media. I don't know why, but as you can see, the number of updates we receive from this area is the same as we receive from Bakhmut. Maybe because Bakhmut there is a progress, and when talking about Avdiivka, this front line is stable. And as soon as the front line start movement, we're going to see more. And this is going to be, and we receive a lot more piece of news from media. We'll see. Now we are moving to Vuhledar. As you can see, this is another strategical battle, but a battle that the Russians have lost. So at least for now, we have calculated 4 strategical battles. Vuhledar, Donetsk strategical battle, Bakhmut strategical battle, and the battle for Serebrianka forest. And when talking at least, this is the 4 battles, and when talking about at least 3 of them is in Russian favor, let's say 2 of them is in Russian favor. I'm talking about Serebrianka forest and Bakhmut. Avdiivka, I believe that they're still 50-50, but during the previous months, the Russians managed to develop their tactical position on the north and some tactical position by the south. They start using the bomb, so I can say that it's 50-50, but maybe 60-40 in Russian favor, at least at this stage. And when talking about Vuhledar, the Russians were defeated, we know that, and there were a lot of updates, and there is also Balagan and mass, and it is very difficult to understand, but this battle has stopped because there are just artillery duels, because if we change the icons till the last 12 hours, of course they will be reduced, and just artillery duels, nothing more. There are no attempts of attack from the Russian side. When talking about Vuhledar, yes, the front lines are stretched, but there is important areas. You can see from Gulyai-Polya to Velika Novoselovka, these small silent, and you see that there are a lot of if you compare the number of artillery duels in this area with this, I understand that maybe the number is the same, but when talking about classic Zaporizhzhia area, they are more stretched. So just the regular artillery duels without saying us that there is something important. There is no even the tactical battles, there is no even operational battles, just the regular artillery duels, completely silent. The only concentration of artillery duels on area between Gulyai-Polya and Novoselovka, Velika Novoselovka, tell us that maybe there are some concentration of Russian and Ukrainian forces, and maybe exactly in this area we are going to see a possible upcoming offensive operation from any of the side. So we discussed about 4 strategic battles, and I will remind you one more time that since the beginning of this year, maybe December of the previous year, I pointed your attention to Kherson. I told you that this area is very important, very interesting, because the numbers of updates we receive, and I told you that this is very important. For now we don't understand the value because we don't receive updates from the ground, from the Western sources. The only information we receive from the Western sources is about Bakhmut, but not about any other front line. Now let's take a look at Kherson, and believe me, you will be surprised. But no, of course you won't be surprised, because I'm telling you almost every single day about the value of this front line. But now you need to see this on the map. This is another strategic battle for Kherson. And this is not even strategic battle, this is some kind of strategic trap for the Ukrainians. They are losing a lot of soldiers, and the updates that we discussed during the previous months completely correlate with the picture we see. And there are at least two places, Kherson itself and Velika Novokakhovka area. There are very heavy artillery duels, and the Ukrainians are losing this area. And this map confirms my understanding and my projection that I believe that if this battle is going to be continued the same way, I believe that somewhere in May the Ukrainians will be forced to step back from Kherson. And this is going to become some kind of nobody's town. There were going to be a lot of commandos battles inside the town. The Ukrainians will send some forces, the Russians, but something tells me that this year this town is going to become nobody's town, because the picture that we see right now is the worst nightmare for the Ukrainians when talking about Kherson, and they're losing a lot of soldiers. And as we discussed, the number of icons and the level of losses of the Ukrainians in this front line is higher than the losses of Ukrainians on the Kupiansk front line, and it tells something to us. It tells something to us. And that's it about this situation. So one more time, there are a number of battles. Operational battle for Vuhledar, operational battle for Novoselovka, Stelmakhovka, and there is operational battle for Forest and Chervonopopovka. There is a small tactical battle between the Silent and Yampolovka. There is a strategic battle, the northern strategic battle for Seversky Donetsk, for the forest that located on the north from Seversk. There is a tactical strategic battle for Bakhmut that the Russians are winning. There is something important happens in Gorlovka. The Ukrainians attack this area, but I don't understand the reason they're doing this. There was a tactical battle on the north of Avdiivka. According to the result of that battle, as I understand, the Russians won that battle, of course with very big losses, but they won. And now there are no backlashes. Just today we received update that the Russians entered Veselaya. There is a strategical battle and very interesting bombing of residential area in the west of Avdiivka, and there is a even closer to operational battle in Marinka without progress. There is a strategic battle that the Russians lost during the previous months in Vuhledar. There are no changes, just a small artillery duels along the front line in Zaporizhzhia, and there is the last but not the least, the strategic battle for Kherson. And the Russians have some plans for this town, and something tells me one more time that maybe this year we are going to see the greatest returning of the Russians on this bank of Kherson, on this bank of the Dnipro River, and maybe Kherson is going to become Russian by the end of this year. One more time, who knows. And that's it about this video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.